Hey, everybody, welcome live to this YouTube Live on a Monday morning. One of the great luxuries of not traveling, not going to games, as I'm in the studio at NBCSportsBayArea.com, is I sleep in my own bed. I wake up on Mondays refreshed, usually through 30 years of traveling with the team, not with the team, but traveling to road games. I was always a first flight out kind of guy. So Monday morning, I'd be up at, boy, oftentimes like a 7 a.m. flight. So I'd be up at, say, 4:30 in the morning, which on the East Coast would be 1:30 in the morning, and then travel all day, get back home on Monday and be exhausted, but no exhaustion on this day. Although yesterday, kind of a long day in the office for our studio show at 7 a.m. And then last night, I was on the Xfinity Sports Sunday show, which goes on after Sunday Night Football on NBC Bay Area. And so when I saw that game go to overtime, my heart just kind of sank. Jake Moody with the kick that sends it to overtime, but ended up being a nice long day, but I'm certainly not complaining. It's a cool job. And so a lot of fun to be in studio with Carlos and Rod during the game time, and then afterward with Feldy on the post-game show. So anyway, a lot to talk about coming off of the 49ers victory on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns. The 49ers really kind of strengthened their grasp on their playoff positioning. And what's kind of neat is just where they are, in my mind, kind of really unaffected by the two injuries that they sustained earlier in the season. I think there are teams out there that have had a lot more injuries than the 49ers, but probably no team that had the star power lost due to the injuries of Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. So, kind of looking back at how I envisioned the 49ers season going, I think probably 9-4 was about what I expected at this point. I know my overall record for them, my projection was that they'd go 11-6. And they're certainly on track for that with a 9-4 record going into the bye week, and then coming out of the bye week with the Tennessee Titans. And, quite clearly, a team that had the number one overall pick last year will probably have the number one overall pick again this year. Not a good team. 49ers should take care of business, although around the NFL, there have been a lot of instances where you think a team will win and they don't win. And then the final three games of the season, it's hard to imagine that the 49ers, with those games against the Colts, the Bears, and the Seattle Seahawks, it's hard to imagine that they're going to lose all three of those games. I don't know that they will win all three of those games. So something like a 2-1 record, a 1-2 record, over those last three games, and then there's your 11 victories for the 49ers. Of course, if they win two of those three, assuming, of course, they beat the Titans, that would put them at 12-5. If they run the table the rest of the way, quite clearly, they would be 13-4. So let's just take a look at the NFC standings. And I'm just putting up there the teams that have records above 500. And so, it's kind of interesting. The Bears, 9-3, not quite sure that they are as good as that record indicates. But as is often said, the record is the record. You are what your record is, and the Bears are 9-3 with a pretty tough stretch coming up to finish off the season. Their final 5 games of the year look to be kind of difficult heading in, including a couple of games against the Packers coming up this week. The Rams at 9-3, did not expect them to lose to Carolina, but Matthew Stafford 2 picks, fumble as well. Those turned into scores for the Panthers. Philadelphia they just don't seem right, but they're 8-4. Tampa Bay holding on to the lead in the South, although Carolina is right there, and Carolina and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have. Do they have 2 more games remaining? Let me just quickly check the schedule to see how many more times they play each other. And yes, they play at Carolina week 16, and then at Tampa Bay week 18. So that division very much up in the air. I think still a very strong chance, as I've been predicting throughout, that the NFC West will get 3 teams in the playoffs. It's certainly tracking toward that. I think the other playoff team will probably come from the North, with Green Bay and Chicago and Detroit battling it out for the 2 spots. The team that's coming on strong, and I know 49er fans will hate me saying this, but the Dallas Cowboys, they seem to be peaking at the right time. 3 consecutive wins, including back-to-back wins by 3 points apiece against the Eagles and Kansas City. Now, those were home games. They go on the road to face the Detroit Lions this week. That is December 4th. So that's a Thursday night game. And that will be, in my estimation, kind of an elimination game. I mean, kind of, but not really. But certainly the winner of that game takes a major step forward. And for either Dallas or Detroit, I don't think either of those teams can afford a loss. And so when you're especially facing a playoff caliber team, that's a very important Thursday night game. The thing that you don't see on this lineup of the teams that are above 500 who are in the mix for the NFC playoffs is the 49ers, their division record and their conference record. So those are certainly aspects of the 49ers season that plays to their advantage. The 49ers only have the 1 loss within the division. So they split against the Rams. They swept the Cardinals. And so far they're 1-0 against Seattle. So the absolute worst they can do within the division is 4-2. But the conference games really stacks up well for the 49ers with an 8-2 record in the NFC. And so that basically gives them the tiebreaker over a lot of these teams, including Detroit, which is 4-4. So if it comes down to it, right now the 49ers have a 1.5 game lead over Detroit, but it's almost like a 2.5 game lead because of the tiebreaker right now that would certainly favor the 49ers with an 8-2 record as opposed to Detroit's 4-4 record right now. So that's where things stand. Coming out of this game, 49ers and the Cleveland Browns, let's go to some of the PFF grades that kind of stood out from this one. And, I always kind of throw in the caveat of, read into this whatever you want. But Brock Purdy came out of it with a pretty good rating as far as how he was graded on those intermediate throws of 10 to 19 yards. He was 6 of 8 for 82 yards, 1 touchdown, and a 146.9 passer rating. Probably the aspect of the game that to me stood out was in a very stiff wind that the 49ers took to open the game, and then they took again in the third quarter. So the second quarter, they were going against the wind. I think the three throws that he made in succession, a 3rd and 10 throw to Ricky Pearsall, um, the next play to Jennings for I think it was 13 yards, 12 yards, and then the 33-yarder to George Kittle. Those were the plays that really stood out. But also the mobility. You know, he ran around a little bit, showed his mobility. Of course, had the rushing touchdown, but he used his mobility to get out of problems, and then he was very much about getting the ball, throwing the ball away, not trying to force it down the field. And as a result, he had 7 throwaways in this game. So 7 of his incomplete passes, at least through the estimations of PFF, were on throws that he just got away to avoid the sack, avoid a negative play. So, um, talking about managing the game and making all the right decisions. Again, Brock Purdy, you know, he didn't light it up. The stat sheet wasn't exactly impressive, but he certainly did what he had to do to help the 49ers win this game. And so that was definitely key. He was under pressure a lot more than I guess I thought he was at the time. Held on to the ball a lot. Yeah, I mean, it was a difficult day, and I think we knew it would be for the 49ers offensive line just to contend with a Cleveland Browns defense that came into the game with the 2nd most sacks in the entire NFL. And of course, Myles Garrett, 18 sacks coming in. He was just chipping away throughout the game against Trent Williams, against Colton McKivitz. And it turned out that Myles Garrett, who had been lining up about 85% of the time on the defense's right side, which is the offense's left side, it was more of an even split in this game. So, you know, he tried his luck with Colton McKivitz. McKivitz was kind of holding on for dear life, of course, without getting called for penalties. You know, pushing, using Garrett's momentum to push him past Brock Purdy in the pocket. The one sack that Myles Garrett did have was against Trent Williams. Neither Williams nor McKivitz graded out particularly well with the PFF scoring system, or a grading system, but I don't think that they take into account the competition that he was up against. But the one Myles Garrett sack was, and I saw Baldy tweeted this out, or he described it as a Euro step, and it very much looked like that, kind of that elongated first step and then the burst around the inside. So almost like a basketball player going in for a layup, but kind of slowing down to let the defender, or force the defender to run past him before having the open lane for the layup. So that was kind of what Myles Garrett did on this day. Defensively for the 49ers, too many missed tackles, but they did a really good job. And on the pregame show, I talked about this, where I didn't expect the 49ers to blitz a lot, and they didn't. They only blitzed one time, but the one time they blitzed, it ended up in a sack. What the 49ers clearly wanted to do was just make Shedeur Sanders play quarterback, keep him contained in the pocket, force him to go through his reads, and the 49ers try to play coverage on the back end, and that's exactly what they did. And Sanders, according to QBR, certainly had a bad game. I didn't think he was that bad. I thought he was okay. Yes, he held onto the ball too long. Yes, he took some sacks. Yes, he and Jerry Jeudy certainly weren't seeing eye to eye on the sideline, all of that stuff. But, for a rookie, I was expecting him to make multiple mistakes. But instead, all the mistakes came from other people on that Browns team, with the return game not good, with, the play calling of having Harold Fannin, a rookie tight end, line up behind center to take a snap on a 4th down play. To me, that didn't make any sense. I'm sure Kevin Stefanski and his staff are getting all kinds of grief about that in Cleveland on this day and yesterday. The defensive line for the 49ers played pretty well. You could tell what they were trying to do, just stay in their pass rush lanes, not allow any escape hatch for Shedeur Sanders. And with Cleveland Ferrell and Keon White, two big acquisitions for the 49ers near the trading deadline, picking up Farrell as a free agent and then making the trade for Keon White from the New England Patriots. So 49ers getting some guys that really helped impact this team and will be important guys for the 49ers going down the stretch. So that's basically what I have for you. And I see a lot of people chiming in with comments, with questions. Again, thanks for watching this video. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also leave a like, comment, whatever you see fit to do. A little bit later today at 2 p.m. we'll be going on NBC's YouTube feed, NBC Sports Bay Area's YouTube feed for a 49ers Now episode. I think I'm on with Carlos and Rod. So we'll kind of break down all kinds of things. Let me see. Did I get a text? We're talking about Sky Moore, the X Factor, Cleveland Ferrell, the defense with a second really strong game in a row. In fact, when you look at the 49ers right now, and what they've done defensively, two straight games now where they've allowed under double digits as far as points go. The 20-9 victory over the Carolina Panthers, a Panthers team that scored 31 points on the Rams yesterday. Of course, I think 14 of those were on from the defense, and then Cleveland being held 20-8. So kind of a wonky game, I think, against the Browns yesterday, just because of the conditions, not being there, of course, but watching and hearing Brad Allen, the referee, anytime that he opened up his mic to say something, penalty or whatnot, you could hear the wind just whipping. And let's see, officially, it was at kickoff, it was 35 degrees. And the wind was southwest, out of the southwest, 20 miles an hour. Of course, there were gusts up around 35, and then the wind chill was 24. So didn't exactly lend itself to offensive fireworks. Going back to Brock Purdy, he was 16 of 29. And so if you take away his 7 throwaways, that would make him 16 of 22. So on the passes that he was looking to complete, 16 of 22. Again, not huge performance, 168, 1 touchdown, but just the no interceptions, the only 1 sack taken in this game. George Kittle, a nice game, 4 for 67. I know a lot of people have been underwhelmed with the performances of Ricky Pearsall since he's been back. On this stage is 2 catches for 14 yards, but that 13-yarder might have been about the most impactful completion the 49ers had on this day, as it helped keep that drive alive at the end of the first half. And instead of going into halftime trailing 8-7, the 49ers take a 10-8 lead. Of course, they needed 2 plays after that passes to Jennings and to Kittle, but none of that happens if Pearsall and Brock Purdy don't hook up on that pass play. So those are kind of the things I wanted to touch on as we get this thing going. Oh, I know what I wanted to say too. Talking about Pearsall, the thing that stood out to me in just kind of looking at the playing time from this game, and it shows you the confidence that the 49ers have in Ricky Pearsall. It also tells you that he's doing a lot of the right things, the things that the 49ers want to see, the things Kyle Shanahan wants to see, Leonard Hankerson wants to see out of their wide receiver. Ricky Pearsall led the 49ers wide receivers in snaps from scrimmage. So 49ers had 67 plays, and Pearsall had 58 plays in this game. Juwan Jennings had 54. You all saw, I don't know if this is a concern or if you guys are pay any attention to this, but you know, Jennings is certainly known as an instigator. By the way, he got a pretty hefty fine coming out of that game against the Panthers. Trayvon Merrick gets suspended for the punch to Juwan Jennings' nuts. And then Jennings, after the game, retaliated. Jennings gets a $14,000 fine. But, some comments that, I don't know. It's Shelby Harris talking about Juwan Jennings after the game, that he says stuff. He said he could see why Merrick punched him because of the stuff that he says out there. So he, suggested that Juwan Jennings kind of does his trash talk in a below the belt kind of way, and that led to Trayvon Merrick delivering a literal below the belt punch. So I don't know if that's something that Juwan Jennings needs to clean up as far as just the amount of respect that he has for his opponents, or lack thereof. So, and all that took place during a really unfortunate time when Malik Collins, former 49ers defensive tackle, has an injury that looks like it's going to be a severe injury, season-ending type of injury. Just it was not a good look, I don't think, for the 49ers. So I don't know if that's something the 49ers even address with Juwan Jennings, or if everything that happens out there is kind of fair game. I don't know. But I don't know if you guys if that's something that comes across your radar as a fan. There's probably a sense of, these guys are in full uniform, wearing the helmets. You don't see, it's hard to read lips. You don't know what's going on out there. So what we don't see, what we don't hear, makes no impact. I don't know. The fans have to decide for themselves what your feelings are on that. Okay, now I've rattled on long enough here, 22 minutes. So let's go up to the top, I guess, and just see what you have for me. A lot of greetings. NFL Rumors said the 49ers tried to trade for Justin Jefferson. Was that a bunch of BS? Well, here's the thing. If it's NFL Rumors, it's probably BS. Tried to trade. Could the 49ers have made a phone call to the Vikings to see what it would take? Probably. I think they made a lot of phone calls to a lot of different teams about a lot of different players, but what were they willing to give up? So obviously that didn't materialize. 49ers had, I'm sure they had a list of dozens of players that they were interested in. Would that have surprised me if they at some point made a call to the Vikings about Justin Jefferson? It probably would not have. I mean, I think we all can look at the 49ers wide receiver position and see that they're going to need help for next season. Right now, I was just thinking about this on my way home last night. Unlike a year ago, where you knew with all the scheduled free agents, there were going to be a lot of changes. I think we had anticipated that a strong chance that Deebo Samuel wouldn't be back. Obviously, with all the defensive linemen, figured there was no way that Aaron Banks was coming back. Figured that there was no way Charvarius Ward was coming back. Figured that it was going to be maybe unlikely, certainly unlikely, maybe beyond unlikely. It was impossible for them to keep both Hufanga and Greenlaw. I thought that they would probably make a strong run at keeping one of them, and they did. Kind of after the fact, they tried to keep Dre Greenlaw. This year, it's not like that. This year, heading into training camp and the regular season, the only two starters who are prospective free agents or potential free agents were Colton McKivitz and Juwan Jennings. Now, Juwan Jennings, we all know, wanted a contract that was far more than what the 49ers were prepared to pay him on a contract extension. Colton McKivitz ends up signing a contract extension for the 49ers, $15 million per season. So as I look at the 49ers right now, a lot of these guys, the bulk of the team will be back next year, next season. Jennings, very much up in the air. I wouldn't expect him to come back just because of what his asking price was from the 49ers. Would the 49ers still find him more valuable than any other team? Perhaps, but there's also a sense of pride where Jennings probably feels a little bit slighted by the 49ers that they didn't see eye to eye on what he was worth. And so do I expect him back next season? I don't expect him back. I think it's a possibility that he's back. I certainly don't expect Brandon Ayuk back. And then Kendrick Bourne, probably not. If he does, it would be for kind of a low-level contract. I mean, Kendrick Bourne now has kind of fallen off as far as the playing time. Got a little bit more playing time on Sunday against the Browns than he had in the weeks leading up to this. But, I think that, wide receiver is definitely a position the 49ers will address if they can shed, and they will shed Brandon Ayuk's contract, voiding that guaranteed money for next year. That does open up some, not cap space because it'll hurt them on the cap, but just real money space. And the 49ers have shown over the past 5 years, very few teams. I think they might be the first or second in the league as far as cash spending, cash over cap. So they certainly have shown a willingness to spend money to improve the roster. And so that's something where, whether it's the draft picks, 7 picks in the first 4 rounds, including the compensatories, wide receiver is definitely a position where the 49ers will look to address in the offseason. Oh, hey, what do we have here? I see someone made a nice little contribution here. Michael McBurney, 6'11". Thank you so much for your generosity. Very much appreciated. And Michael, if you have a question or a topic you'd like addressed, please leave it here, and I will definitely prioritize your question. Okay, so that was very nice. Okay, let's get back up here to the top, and I'll just kind of go through it. Furl and White are looking like great acquisitions. Definitely. Let's see here. Brock lost a decent amount of PFF grade because he threw the ball away under pressure a lot, but that's a lot better than forcing the ball. Yeah, I don't know. It looked like his I don't know that that's accurate. I mean, you can tell me, but I wouldn't think that a throwaway would be downgraded on the stat sheet or on the grading report. O-line and Shanahan game plan did about as well as anyone could have hoped for. I would agree with that. Do you think the 49ers extend both Moore and Furl? I think so. Think about Sky Moore. I haven't looked at the NFL return stats, but Sky Moore might be putting himself into a spot where first or second team All-Pro with his return ability, what he's done. And that's something that, that is very surprising, but he's certainly carved out a role with the 49ers. It's not on offense. He didn't even take a snap on offense, but as a return man, he has been really reliable. Early in the season, there were many plays, it seemed like, where he probably made bad judgments to catch punts inside the 8-yard line. But I think he's been really good, really dependable here over the last 6, 7, 8 games. And would the 49ers want to keep him? Yes, I would think so. Furl, I think, to me, is kind of I would expect him to be back with the 49ers because, he's been other places. He was with Washington. He was with the Chargers. And it just didn't work out there. The Chargers had no use for him. They had him on their active roster for one game this season, and then they cut him off their practice squad. And so it seems to me like Furl has found something that works with the 49ers. So I would expect him to want to come back. I would expect the 49ers to want him back as they continue, of course, to draft defensive linemen, defensive ends in particular, get Michael Williams back for next season. But I would say, I'd say a strong chance that both of those guys, put it this way, both of those guys have done all that's been asked of them with the 49ers and have certainly earned that recognition or certainly that consideration of returning to the 49ers next season. So thanks for that question. What else we got here? Do you think CMC will get 1,000 yards rushing, 1,000 yards receiving? Yeah. It's going to be tough because I think at this point he has to average right around 50 yards rushing per game and 50 yards receiving per game. So it's going to be difficult. But it also looks like the 49ers might have to run through the tape. In other words, it's not going to be a 16-game season like they had in 2023 where their playoff fate is sealed and they don't have to play any of their regulars in that final week of the season. Boy, it's going to be close. I think he'll definitely get, I should say definitely. My guess is he'll get the rushing part of it. Now the receiving part of it. Yeah, you know what? Let's say it. I think he's going to go 1,000. I think he's going to go 1,000. Not sure I've ever heard wind blow through a ref's mic like that. Yeah, I'd agree with that. But Brock can't play in cold weather. That's in jest from Joe. Let's see here. Saw how the wind affected Shador's throw. Brock is not 100%. Okay, let's see here. Who was the last team to go to a Super Bowl on their home field? Wasn't it the Rams? Did the Rams win it? Did the Rams win at SoFi Stadium? Is that right? Help me out there. I think so. I should remember. It didn't happen too long ago. Let's see here. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there it is right there. Rams at SoFi, and then Tampa Bay won at Raymond James Stadium. What happened to Bourne? 18 yards from his incentive, and he's disappeared. What happened was that Ricky Pearsall came back, and so I think the 49ers just view Pearsall as a more reliable, on point with his assignments, wide receiver, and so I think they have a very difficult time taking him off the field. And so it's basically Juwan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall out there for all downs. And then whenever the 49ers go to three wides, they shuttle in Bourne or Demarcus Robinson. So that's why there hasn't been much action here for Kendrick Bourne. I don't know what to think of what JJ said without knowing what he said. Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't know how easy or appropriate to be to find out exactly what he's saying. It sounds to me like it's not real appropriate for whatever medium. So yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. But by the way Shelby Harris was talking, it sounded bad, didn't it? Okay, what do we got here? Will Williams be healthy? Who's Trent Williams? Which Williams? So I mean, Trent's healthy coming out of the bye week. Juszczyk has the ribs injury, so at least he has a week to recover from that. Barch has the foot injury, got a week to recover from that. Bethune and Pinheiro could return. after the bye week. I think Sam Okawanu will be out for a little bit more time. Hey, we have another nice gift here. What do we got? Why do Cleveland Browns players refer to Juwan Jennings as the wrong gardening equipment when all he does is rake in receptions and wins? Oh, I got it. That's a good one. Got it. Yeah, it's early. No, it's not really early. It's 11:40. Yeah. So, what was the line? He's a hoe, something like that. Not a hoe. He's been raking in receptions. Well, thank you very much. That's from Gammon Brown 9898. Thank you so much for the nice gift there. Appreciate that very, very much. Let's see here. What do we got? So much credit to John Lynch in the front office for pressing the right buttons and bringing back Furl and Bourne and then making that trade for Keon White. What a nice trade for Sky Moore as well. Yeah, 49ers also, all the guys that they've acquired in trades from June on have had some sort of role. Bryce Huff and Furl are the leading sack artists on this team with 4 apiece. Brian Robinson hasn't contributed a whole lot, but he is proven to be, when he's getting his opportunities, a reliable number 2 back. And so, it's funny. I do this thing, 49ers game plan interview on NBC Sports Bay Area, and it's on the YouTube channel. You can find it. And so, it's basically a coaching show. So, I know it's not journalism. I ask, it's a coach's show. It's not, the point of it isn't hard hitting questions, and it's not a 60 minutes kind of thing. It's just to try to peel back the curtain a little bit, bring you a little bit more context about the team, whether I'm talking to Coach Kyle Shanahan or General Manager John Lynch. With Shanahan, I like to kind of prod a little bit about his philosophy, the check with me system, the CAN system. I've talked to him about that. I've talked to him about his philosophy on going for it on 4th down. I've asked him about his open door policy, how he considers, new plays. What does he do? What's the first thing he does when he starts game planning for an opponent he hasn't seen for a while? So stuff like that. But, I was kind of checking out some of the comments, and, and I think, and this is why I don't really buy into, or I don't take comments, on YouTube or wherever at face value, because there's this, John Lynch should be fired and all this, and I'm thinking there's no way anybody could really think that, is there? Have the drafts been perfect? Of course not. Show me a team that has drafted perfectly. But even with their 2 top defensive players and 2 of their 3 or 4 or 5 best players, period, off the team, out with injuries, Rangers are still 9-4. And if Kyle Shanahan is a front runner for Coach of the Year, which he clearly is, he and Mike Vrabel, I would think at this point, basically a 2-man race. I think that there would also be a lot of push for maybe even John Lynch being general manager or executive of the year. So I don't really understand that, other than people just trying to stir it up and maybe do a contrarian type of viewpoint. If you disagree with me, let me know. If you think that John Lynch should be fired, I mean, that's a little bit extreme, but where the 49ers have drafted to, they've been in the NFC Championship game, was it 4 years in a row? So it's been 4 out of 5 years. So they're always drafting later in the first round. The players, there were a couple drafts there where they did not get much. Clearly, those were the drafts after the Trey Lance trade, which, obviously that one did not work out. But you don't get graded as a general manager on how your drafts go necessarily. You get graded on the team you put together. And I think that, over the past 5, 6, 7 years, I would say that if you look at the rosters of teams in the NFL, 49ers have probably consistently been in the top 5 or 6 on that, on those markers. And, maybe more to the point, they've, their winning percentage and the number of games they've won, the number of playoff games they've won. I mean, shoot, they've won 8 playoff games since the 2021 season. So, 21, 22, 23, 24. They had the 29, I guess 2019, obviously they go into the Super Bowl there. So a lot of wins. And the one thing I would say about where the 49ers roster is now, with all the stuff that's happened, I'm not sure their depth has ever been this good. And it's not, depth of guys that just stand out and guys who are highly drafted or whatnot, but there's been very little drop off, it seems to me, from one player to the next. I mean, obviously, whoever's going to fill in for Fred Warner is going to be 1 or 2 or 3 steps below that. But Tatum Bethune has done a good job, did a good job when he was out there. Obviously, losing Nick Bosa, there's going to be a significant drop off from there. And the 49ers pass rush, hasn't been great. Was it now 14 sacks in 13 games? That's not good enough. But trying to find a way, to get it to still win games, which they've been able to do. So the other part of it is, for Shanahan, the improvements. Well, there's 2 ways to look at it. The wrong hires were made when he needed another defensive coordinator. The wrong hire was made when he needed a special teams coach. But this year, when you look at that coaching staff, let's just take the offensive side of it out of the picture. When you look at the coaching staff, and you cannot poke any holes, I don't think, or very few holes in the job that Robert Saleh has done as defensive coordinator, and especially the job that Brant Boyer has done as a special teams coordinator. So that staff seems to be coaching at a very, very high level. Okay, so again, thanks to Michael McBurney 611 for yours. What else do we have here? Don't forget Brian Robinson. Can't argue with winning now, but let's get more touches for Robinson. Honestly, way too early to think about next season. I would agree, McFly. It's too early to. Well, no, you know what? It's never too early to think about next season. Offensive tackle is well, you're saying that, you're saying that's too early to think about next season, but let's go into the draft again wanting a DN, pass rusher, and offensive tackle. Now, I'd say the main needs for the 49ers as we project out to late April would be 1 edge rusher, and then 2 wide receiver, and then offensive line. I would say that projecting out, as long as Trent Williams is back next season, the only real open spot, I think, on the offensive line would be left guard. I think, assuming everybody's healthy and back, Trent Williams, left tackle, Brindle, center, Pooney, left guard or right guard, and then McKivitz, right tackle. I think that's pretty much lock it in. Those guys are under contract. Those guys are playing at high enough levels. And then the question is, Barch, the injuries are certainly a concern. When he's out there, he plays well, but he just hasn't been out there. And then Burford is scheduled for free agency, so we'll see if he can find a starting job elsewhere, or do the 49ers say, like, okay, he's gotten it. It's his 4th year in the NFL, and now let's get him out there. But as far as offensive tackle, any offensive tackle they take, here would be the thing, maybe, where that would make a lot of sense. Draft a player, probably not in the first round, maybe not in the second round, but draft an offensive tackle, or let's put it this way, draft an offensive lineman who ultimately projects at tackle, who could start off at guard. So think of an offensive lineman who could be a starting left guard from day one, or at least have that opportunity. And while he's learning and growing and gaining experience, down the road, whenever he's needed at left tackle, that's where he shifts to. That's something I know the 49ers used to do in the past, and something that might serve them well for the 2026 NFL draft. What do we got here? I think, let's see, here's Juice Hurt. Kyle Juszczyk has ribs injury. We'll probably find out a little bit more about that on Monday afternoon when Kyle Shanahan speaks to the media. But yeah, he left that game yesterday with ribs injury. And let's see, I mean, he played a good portion of that game. Sometimes offensive tackle takes time to develop. There's no question about that. In fact, I've always kind of said, like, most of the time when teams draft offensive linemen or offensive tackles in the first round, it's bad teams. And guess what? Those teams don't get much better by drafting an offensive lineman. I think there's probably a greater risk of missing on offensive linemen than other positions. So I've never been. There are times, when if the player has to fit the scheme, has to be, the right mentality, smart as heck, and it's not a game-changing position. I agree. You need a good offensive line, but the continuity part of it is a lot more important, I think, how an offensive line works together. But yeah, I look at like the Jets. They just take offensive linemen, it seems like, every year, and they've never gotten better. And so I know the 49ers offensive philosophy is, take the playmaker, take the edge rusher over the offensive lineman if all things are equal. And I can't fault that philosophy at all. It doesn't mean that never take it. No. If there's a Trent Williams out there, you take him. If there's, the stud offensive lineman that can fit the system and have everything, check all the boxes, yeah, you take him if that's the best player out there. But you don't often see the results. Whereas, maybe players at other positions are able to step in and make more of an impact that have a greater impact on the wins and the losses. Let's see here. You can disagree with me all you want on that. I won't be offended. Let's see here. What trade for Sky Moore? Well, the 49ers did acquire Sky Moore in a trade right toward the end of training camp. Eddie should be back. Hey, Matt, any word on Yetur Gross-Matos? Yeah, I think that's going to be a while. The thing that Kyle Shanahan said when I asked him about Yetur Gross-Matos last week was that he was hoping he'd be back before the end of the season, or they think he'll be back before the end of the season. So to me, with a hamstring injury and the fact that he returned to practice and hurt that thing, I think they want to take their sweet time with that. And if the 49ers are basically guaranteed a spot in the playoffs, maybe they just hold off on him until the postseason begins. So I just wouldn't expect Gross Matos back that game against the Titans, maybe, a week or 2 or 3 after that. But it didn't sound like his return is imminent. At least that's how I read it. All right. What what grade are you giving the offensive line? I'd give the offensive line for the season maybe like a B minus, something like that. Um, I mean, the running game's got to be better, no doubt about it. I think by and large, the pass protection has been good. Brock Purdy helps him out a lot. There's no question. Being able to sense the pressure and get rid of the football and avoid sacks. Brock Purdy has been sacked very little, whereas Mac Jones was sacked quite a bit in his games out there. But yeah, I'd say the offensive line is probably B minus. I mean, what would you give it? Let's see it in the comments section what you guys would give it. Is there any word on Jacob Cowing or Jordan Watkins? Yeah, Jacob Cowing is getting better. I think he's darn near healthy. The problem is with him, there's not an opening for him to get on the field. He's not going to get out there and carve his role as a wide receiver this late in the season. And Sky Moore has been very good in the return game. So I think Jacob Cowing will finish the season on injured reserve, and then he has a real chance to contribute next season. And same with Jordan Watkins. I think Jordan Watkins, it was good for him to get out there and play a little bit this season. This is so easy for anybody who's on the outside looking in to say, because you don't know all the dynamics involved. I think it would have been beneficial for the 49ers to continue to keep Jordan Watkins up on game days, whether that was over Demarcus Robinson or Kendrick Bourne, just to get him that experience heading into year 2. But I think Watkins is going to be a big-time contributor his second year in the NFL. And then Jacob Cowing will also have a chance. And if Sky Moore doesn't re-sign with the team, then Jacob Cowing will be the main return guy and also have a chance to make a contribution as a slot receiver. Do you think Brock's injury is still bothering him? Well, yeah, it's still bothering him. There's no question about that. Are they having him play through it? No, I think he's come. I think he feels comfortable playing at this point, knowing that it's going to be an issue. Or at least, he's going to feel it, but I don't think the 49ers are forcing him to get out there and play. Let's see here. Cowing could be practicing around this bye. I think, I would think that Cowing could have his window open. I think Cowing will have his window open after the bye, or at least for the final 3 games of the regular season. I think Curtis Rourke will have his window open too. He's the quarterback the 49ers took in the 7th round. I think they just want him to get out there and practice a little bit. Curtis Rourke won't be active. They'll just keep him on the non-football injury list. And then, at this point, it's really hard to imagine that they're going to open the practice window for Brandon Ayuk, but who knows? I could be wrong. And then Gross Matos at some point also. All right, my voice about ready to give out here, so probably going to be wrapping this thing up. Let's see here. Well, okay, so a question or a comment for a hamstring injury on Cowing, that must have been a terrible one. Well, there's just no opening. There's no opening to get him out there. I just heard, but I don't know how true it is, if Cowing will practice. He probably will practice at some point here. Um, let's see here. Do I think that Coach Sala will leave? If there's the right opportunity for him, yeah, I think he wants to be a head coach. I don't blame him. He wants to prove that under the right circumstances that he can get out from under that, the travesty that is the Jets and win football games. How wild the NFC is right now. Is there a good chance the 49ers get a higher seed? Yeah. You want to look at this again? Is there a chance the 49ers get a higher seed? Yeah. I mean, look at it. They're only just look at they're only a half game out, right? They're only a half game out of the number one spot. And so they're if they were a division leader, they would be third. Um, yeah. So what was the question again? Is it a good chance they get a higher seed? Yeah. In fact, I think if you look at it after, let's see, if Dallas, let's see, after the Bears play the Packers this week. If the Bears, well, whoever loses that game will automatically the 49ers. I think the 49ers are guaranteed to jump up to 6 after this week because either Green Bay will lose or the Bears will lose, and the 49ers have a better conference record than both of those teams, and there's no head-to-head component of that as well. So, yeah, I mean, the 49ers will be, right? Am I missing something? 49ers will be the number 6 seed. They will move up after the bye week. I think that's guaranteed. So, unless there's a tie, then I really don't feel like figuring that out. But I think if there's a tie, then the Bears or the Packers would probably still hold that. Let's see, 9-4. Yeah, I think if the Green Bay Packers tie, it'd be basically the same. An 8-3-2 record would be essentially the same as a 9-4-0 record. I just wonder if the 49ers would get they would have the tiebreaker, so they would move up to 6. So yeah, 49ers would move up to 6 regardless after they come back from the bye week. CMC, Offensive Player of the Year. Oof. Boy, I don't know. I think, I know they don't like to give the Offensive Player of the Year to the guy who also is the MVP. But I think Matthew Stafford, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, those guys. I mean, the fact that you're asking that question, I'm thinking about it. Yeah, I mean, there's a possibility that he could get his second Offensive Player of the Year award. People asking to fire John Lynch must have forgotten when Trent Baalke was general manager. Very true. Although people are asking to fire him too. Has the window closed for the 49ers to make an elite run to the Super Bowl? That's another thing I was thinking about. Like, the people get on these narratives of it's over. It is over. And you never know. I mean, who thought that, potentially the Detroit Lions window for the Super Bowl could have been over when they let that 17-point lead at halftime get away in the NFC Championship game at Levi Stadium. Do I think the Lions window is closed? No. And for the 49ers, I think you can objectively look at their team right now and know that most of their team, the vast majority of their team is under contract for next year. And I think you can say, they have a chance this year, believe it or not. Something that if you'd asked me 4 weeks ago, I would have said, no, they don't have a chance to make a deep playoff run. But now I'm starting to think they have as good a chance as any team. And I think you can make the case that next year, on paper, they should be better when you incorporate the guys coming back from injury. And then also the draft class that they can add some players, some skill players, and more talent, more young talent. So I don't think the window is closed, despite what you might have heard or read. All right. Uh, okay, here's one. McFly. I hear you, Matt, but they have no legitimate backup left tackle. Fair enough. I know exactly. Yep. Um, okay, I think I'm going to call this a day. I got my 49ers overreactions. People coming in with the grades for the offensive line: B plus, B minus, B minus. I agree. Hopefully by the end of the season, give them an A minus, B's in the C back when Connor Colby was in there. Well, of course they're going to be a C when Connor Colby, CC, get it? Oh well. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for everybody who. Um, it says Mac will be missed. I don't think Mac is going anywhere. I think the 49ers are not going to trade him, but hey, I've been wrong before. It's just a guess. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in to this YouTube live. I had a blast of a time. Now I'm going to get to work on 49ers overreactions. Thanks so much to everybody for tuning into this. Again, leave a like, leave a thumbs up, all that good stuff. Subscribe if you haven't already. Trying to spit that out. And again, thanks for all of you. I appreciate you, and have a great rest of your week.